Firstly, I think one of the rules for success is having a clear goal and leading yourself there. So it's a lot of what we teach our client leaders and our stakeholders to do, because articulating a goal is quite challenging for most people, and we're in mentoring a number of our culturally diverse women as well, and their first hurdle is unable to articulate a goal. You kind of aspirationally know generally what they want, and they have an aspiration towards success, but being able to say, like, what do you want to do in the next 6 to 12 months, and can you articulate that, and do you know how to measure that, and how will you know if you've got there? That for me, whatever you are doing, whatever functional area you come from, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, if you can define what the goal is, as opposed to a dream or an aspiration, then it becomes real. And so right from early on, that was something that I knew I could do, and it would be very specific. So, for example, if it's about building a brand, let's say, okay, that for me is a big fat goal. How do I go about doing that? What is it specifically that I'm going to do in the next 6 months? Through what mediums will I do that? So I get very specific. So number one, I'd say have a goal and be able to articulate it. And secondly, be able to measure it in terms of progression. So most people find it hard, I think, to actually really hold themselves to account as to whether they got there or didn't. And for me, I'm quite hardline on myself as to whether I did get there or not, and why not. And it doesn't mean that I just adjust the goal to fit it in and say, oh yeah, now success. I kind of as I'm going along the journey, reshape that goal and understand what it is that I'm trying to achieve, and what else do I need to get in. Is it resources? Is it people? What is it that I need to do to get myself back on track? So measuring it all the way through, not just measuring it at the 6-month mark. So I think that is really important for people. I have a little acronym around, it comes from my coaching accreditation, but it really, we work with all our leaders on it, our client leaders. It's called growth, and G stands for goal, R stands for being realistic. So where are you now? What are you doing? What is it? O stands for options. So can you create enough options or pathways? If that's the goal, what are the major alternatives that you have? And I normally do a risk assessment of all the various options. So if I go down this pathway, what's the risk assessment? What do I do? A W is for will, to really understand, can I have that motivational drive to sustain myself on a number of these options, or will I just completely, this is so huge, this option, I'm going to give up 2 weeks into it, I can't make it. So really assess, can I go all the way? T is for tactics. It's about specific, what are you going to do next? So just because you have an option doesn't mean you know what specifically you're going to do when you go out into the world, or who you're going to call, or what are you going to do first. So tactics and very tactical next steps are important. And H is for making it a habit. So really making it part and parcel of what you do. So if it's about branding and it's about using LinkedIn as an option, it means that I have to really be authentic about how I'm going to post things. Who is it that I'm going to tag? How am I going to give messages on LinkedIn that build around my brand over time? And I was very deliberate about that. So really, number one, have a goal. Number two, measure it. And number three, actually have those personal attributes around you to guide you along the goal. And number four, I'd say, make sure that you actually associate with people that can guide you along the way. That's been quite rich for me to actually fine-tune who it is that I need in my immediate and then next outer circle. It's really important to choose those people wisely, because they can either guide you faster or they can slow you down. And especially as an entrepreneur, you get a lot of people who want to collaborate and want to support you, but sometimes they have their own agendas, and that's quite, you need to be quite decisive about understanding, all right, am I collaborating with someone? Are they leading me down a different path? Is it where I need to go as an entrepreneur, or am I just caught up in the hype? Am I following the money? and not actually staying true to what my product or service actually is. So it can be very interesting to see how you can dilute yourself very quickly and not stay in your niche area because you're just following the commercial, the money and the dollars. And I've seen a number of people who go from corporate to entrepreneurship where they actually then end up with as this consultant with many things that they do, and then I feel it waters down their brand. When you ask them, what do you do? They can't articulate it because they've done a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of that. So I think you have to associate yourself with people who can keep you on track and true to what you are providing the market. So that's really important. So people around you. And number 5, I'd say actually take time out to reflect and stop and look at it from a helicopter view. I think no matter whether you're in a corporate career or entrepreneur, you can get really bogged down with the here and now and what you are trying to achieve. And if you don't stop and say, let me look from a helicopter view, let me ask someone who's so different from me what they think, and inviting in opinions. When you don't stop to reflect, I think you actually are not being creative or as creative as you can be. So I think number 5, absolutely stop, reflect, reset everything. And even if it's validating, that's good too. But you may find that you go, gosh, I've got another angle that I can go down, and that's also worthwhile in terms of being creative. Number 6, I'd say don't forget the people most close around you. So I think it's easy to get caught up with success and goals and where you're going, and I think the most important thing is, or easy thing to forget, is your family, your health, those sorts of things. And I must say, I've not been great at doing that. Family, yes, I think my children and my husband, yes. But in terms of looking after myself, health-wise, I've absolutely let that slip, because if it's not the business and my family, I'll then sacrifice sleep, going for a run, or doing something for myself well-being-wise. I think it's easy to forget in this whole push to become successful and get your goals done and all of those things. I think we leave ourselves very little fuel in the tank, and that can absolutely derail everything. So health and well-being of yourself is really important. Good networks, so building good networks, but in a very authentic way. So I build networks from a relationship perspective, but always I always give something first with a network. So it may not be, I don't see everyone that I meet as a potential lead or sale. I actually see it from a learning, I'm curious, so I see it from a learning experience, and then I try and give something if I can authentically. And interestingly, a lot of those people that I've met at conferences or whatever it is, actually have ended up either referring work or being a client, because I've been able to connect them with someone, give them some information, point them to a site, connect people who are potential clients together. I always think from a networking perspective, people are always thinking, oh, network, what can you give me? I think about it differently. How can I really get to understand what someone is needing? And if I can give something, great. If they can give me something as well, fantastic. But I see it as an exchange. So networking is not one way. It's definitely two-way, and it's really over time. So I think, especially from a lot of migrants' perspective in building networks, migrants tend to think, look, a senior person needs to see me, and they need to give me some time, and they also need to help me. It doesn't really work like that. It often doesn't come so easily. It comes over time, and you've got to be patient with networks. So I think that's a good tip. In terms of an entrepreneur journey, I think it's always good to think about growth and not just immediate profitability and revenue. I think that is a very short-sighted view. If you're making money today, doesn't mean you're going to make money tomorrow. And that has been a big learning curve for me, is being able to understand growth. I think the next thing would be behind growth comes, especially a woman in business, financial acumen and business acumen. Being able to be really clear about where your financial drivers are, and in terms of what models sit behind those financial drivers. So it's easy to think of a service that you can price and then sell, but that's just a volume metric. That's just, well, just sell more of it and I'll make money. And you can project sales and volume and think, oh yeah, that will give me this revenue. But it's also about saying, okay, how many different channels can I get to attack that revenue? Where can it come from? How can it there be the same service and knowledge provided in multiple ways that can bring multiple revenue streams? And how do I do that? How can I scale that? So I think financial acumen is key, but also being creative around financial acumen, because often corporate life just gets you to see things in a balance sheet view. If you're operating a P&L in a corporate space, you don't get to see that visibility of how to really maximize growth and where can it come from, because you're often in a department covering one P&L. And you're not necessarily creative around that P&L. Whereas as an entrepreneur, for growth and scale, you've got to think multiple ways. So I think that's the growth, and then the financial acumen and the creativity around financial acumen is really what I've learned the most in my sort of entrepreneurial life. Also, as an entrepreneur, understand when there's going to be an exit strategy. So one thing that I'm still learning is understanding